Imagine a world where our digital assistants, our news feeds, even our job recommendations are subtly influenced by hidden biases ingrained in the very fabric of the artificial intelligence. This is not a distant reality, but a present challenge. My name is Merville Palmores. I'm a Master's of Data Science student in the University of Exeter, and this is my review of the paper Man is the Computer Programmer, as Woman is the Homemaker, Devising Word Embeddings, entitled Step Back to Move Forward. In this paper, the authors delve into the unseen world of word embeddings, a critical component of how AI operates, and uncover disturbing gender stereotypes. The authors of the paper investigated the specific problem of gender bias present in word embeddings. These words embeddings are a form of word representation that allows word with similar meaning to have similar representation. These embeddings were found to exhibit gender stereotypes, such as associating men with computer programming and women with homemaking. The problem the authors were addressing in the paper is that the gender biases in word embeddings. The paper explores methods to quantify and reduce these biases while maintaining the usefulness of the embeddings. The authors also conducted crowd experiments to evaluate whether their embeddings biases reflects the crowd's biases and use their findings to develop algorithms for hard debiasing and soft bias correction of the embeddings. Their ultimate goal was to reduce the gender stereotypes present in these word embeddings and mitigate the risk of amplifying societal gender biases through machine learning applications. So what are the causes of biases in word embeddings as discussed in the paper? First, the bias in training data. The biases in word embeddings primarily stem from the data on which these models are trained. For example, if the training data frequently associates certain professions or roles more with one gender than the other, the resulting word embeddings will likely mirror these associations, and the embeddings learn from our own ways. Second one is the societal stereotypes, and similar to number three, implicit association language. This actually was evident in their empirical research from the survey they did with the crowd. The biases in language, for example, it was linking female terms with arts and family versus male terms with science and careers. The fourth one was the geometry of embeddings, or the way word embeddings capture the meaning and relationships between words in the geometric space. And this can advertently introduce biases. Take, for example, the word nurse. Okay, in their study, it should be a gender-specific word. And they use the word father, mother to actually see what the distance is between the nurse, the mother and father. So actually check the biases. And you'll notice that the distance between nurse and mother is smaller in comparison to the distance between the nurse and the father. Thus, in the word embeddings, imply that nurse is actually more feminine and closer to mother vector. This is actually incorrect because nurses can be both male and female. The last one of the causes is actually the direct and indirect biases. The direct bias occurs when gender-neutral words show an association with a specific gender. Example, the homemaker, whereas it's closer to she. Whereas indirect biases arises from associations between gender-neutral words due to the gender. Example, football, because softball, because a lot of women play softball. These biases are not necessarily intentional, but are a consequence of the underlying data and the nature of the language used. The authors pointed out that societal biases have broader influence into the development of word embeddings. So what are the consequences of these biases? What are the consequences of these biases? I'm going to show you a demo using Midjourney AI that depict what a softball, how it interprets softball in this AI. So first, right, the consequences is that it amplifies the gender stereotypes. The paper highlights how machine learning, specifically with biased word embeddings, can amplify biases present in data. Look for yourself. This amplification of biases can reinforce gender stereotypes and discrimination in various applications like Midjourney, and thus impacting society's perception and treatment of different genders. So you can see on the screen, softball implies that it's actually more feminine than male. Second one is the implication for web search. As you can see on the screen, if I type computer science person today and look at the images, the results are actually influenced by the word embeddings because it represents more male, as discussed earlier. The third impact or the consequence of bias, and going back to Midjourney, is the representation of various demographics. If I do an prompt here for an Indian person, the biases in word embeddings affects the different demographics and geographic groups. The language used by minority might not be processed accurately by natural language, leading to lack of inclusivity and potential misrepresentation. Example, the Indian person you see in the screen at the moment is more represented by an old man than just an Indian person. In response to these issues, the paper discusses the development and application of algorithm to debias these word embeddings. The author introduced methodologies for modifying an embedding to remove gender stereotypes such as association between receptionist and female while maintaining the desired associations like queen and female. And they define metrics to quantify both direct and indirect biases in embeddings and develop algorithm for debiasing. So what's the industry doing about this? In a research by Kalis Khan in 2015 called Detecting and Mitigating Biased Natural Language Processing, Amazon's automated resume screening tool trained and passed job candidates' resume exhibited discrimination against women. The model learned historical trends that favor male candidates due to their overrepresentation in the training set, leading to biased outcomes against female job candidates. Amazon discontinued this automated recruitment tool after discovering the bias. Another one for Google, machine learning. Read more about that in the source below after this presentation in the end. In summary, while there's an acknowledgement of the need for debiasing in AI and NLP among tech companies, the implementation of such measures appears to be inconsistent and lacks transparency and regulation. So the call for action is that we need transparency and regulation in AI safety and bias mitigation. So as a reflection, what can we learn from these? First, as data scientists, we need to acknowledge that bias exists in many forms of data sets. Second, we need to include inclusive in our data sets. Third and fourth, on combining them, the regular audit and being transparency in model development. Have a person check your work. 5, adhere to ethical AI practices and standards is vital. 6th one, we need to collaborate with experts in the fields of ethics. Isn't this why we're data scientists? We're good and trained at collaboration. 7, incorporate feedback loops. Continue training and education. Be upfront. Understand what's the latest development in AI ethics because it is very important in our work. 9, include human loop and promote diversity within AI teams. Hopefully that is helpful. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you get something from it. Thank you so much.